first off, I want to thank the grace of heaven and the virtues of the masters, the mercy of the grand predecessors, transmitting masters, and everyone here to have this opportunity to talk about this topic, faith and vows. Okay. These are very two important elements in our cultivation. Throughout, from the very beginning to all the way to the end, we need these two. Okay, so I mean, last week we mentioned about karmic, resolving our karma, and did mention that vows are one way to help with that. So that's why it's very important. Okay, so let's see. All right. So first, we'll talk about what's a vow. It's a little bit easier. It's something that people kind of understand a little bit more. It's a solemn promise. Okay, so promise. It could be, for the most part, we're familiar with this in civil society, right? Whether we can call these like civil or mundane vows. So, for example, marriage vow, right? Or any kind of oath, right? So vow, marriage vow is probably the only real vow that we find out in society. But the others, they call them oaths, maybe. So like, some kind of oath of allegiance or to testify to the truth. For example, in court, right, you have to take that oath to say that you're going to say the truth, that tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, right? So these are these are more very, not like the marriage vow, of course, that's like a lifetime thing. And but these oaths are kind of more short. They have a very limited scope. Okay, so dealing with that matter at hand or whatever. And then oaths also to uphold the duties of an office. So the president or anyone who, before taking the office, they have to take this oath. Say they're going to uphold the Constitution, etc., all that stuff. Okay, so these are, again, they're all promises that they're going to do something. Okay, even when we become a citizen, right? If in the U.S. we become a citizen, you also have to take this oath, basically oath of allegiance to this country. And okay, so those are kind of the civil things, civil types of vows, if you will. Okay, so, but you can also have you can make a personal vow. People make personal vows all the time, I guess. And this is just individual, decide what you want to do. You vow that you want to do something. And, so this can be anything really. Any kind of, usually there's some kind of goal that we want to achieve. Okay, so that's what the vow does. Okay, so it's a promise that we're going to do it. Okay, we're going to complete that or fulfill it. All right, and then of course, you have to also, the vow is just kind of the promise aspect, but there's also the action, right? The action that has to go with it to complete the vow. Then there are like holy and religious vows. Okay, so that's what we're talking about today. That's what we'd be interested in, because in our cultivation, we're going to make some vows as well. These, what we call these holy vows. Okay, so in religion, in various religious orders, they have all these different types of vows. Vows of poverty. Where the monks, for example, they vow that they're not going to own a lot of material things, right? Vows of obedience, vow of celibacy, ahimsa, right? That comes from the Jainism, where it's doing no harm, right? So that's actually the same as what we talk when we talk about the vegetarian vow, is to not do any harm. Okay, but we'll talk about our vows a little bit a little bit later. Excuse me. All right. Let's see. Okay, so now vows can also be made to usually. Now we say, okay, so in the previous cases, like in the civil cases, it's vowed to whoever, the court, the judge, whoever. But ultimately it's made to ourselves. Okay, so we promise ourselves. Of course, God is the witness, right? But sometimes we say, oh, okay, I'm going to make a promise to the Buddha that I'm going to do something, right? But ultimately, it should be the vow is making it to ourselves. So we're actually promising ourselves. Okay. Right. And okay. So there can be also formal and informal vows. And a formal one is done there's some kind of ritual or ceremony that goes along with it. So in our case, in the case of the temple, when we take, excuse me, when we take the vows, we will typically, there's a document, excuse me, that, basically describes the vow and, where and when it's taken and who is taking it. And it, as part of our ceremony, our ritual, it gets burned at the altar and stuff like that. So that's kind of more formal vow. But we can also make vows that are informal, which are just in our own heart and mind. Okay, so in this case, it's basically like a personal vow, but we can take any kind of vow, and as long as we are sincere, we make this vow sincerely, that then it's just as good as an official vow, formal vow. Now, there might be some case that the formal, we still want to do the formal vow, because if we just do this vow within our heart and mind, yes, ultimately, yes, we are promising ourselves, right? We don't need, and it's between us. This vow is between us and God, really, and our Lamu or and Buddhas, and it doesn't really necessarily have anything to do with anyone else, and that's okay. It's just that sometimes having a more formal vow where it's, you can say it's public, it's made known to other people, that then it's a little bit more, you can say that it has a little bit more force, if you will, in that it can remind us at times when, we may kind of forget our vow. If it's just an informal one where we just say it to ourselves, then sometimes we might say ignore it, or we forget about it at times. And so having a formal one can help reinforce the fact that we do have this vow and we have to keep, try to fulfill it, right? So a vow puts faith into action. So this is kind of the connection between with faith and vows. Okay, so there's basically it's like a bridge between. Well, first we have to have faith, okay, before we make vows, right? Without faith, it's unlikely that we make vows. And we're talking about holy vows, okay? Now, sometimes you could, okay, but it seems very unlikely. And then the vows themselves don't mean that we're doing something, okay? So we have to, it's vow saying we're promising to do something, and then so we have to actually act on it, and we have to do it as well. Okay. So let's talk about faith now. So faith is, this is the dictionary definition, or one of the definitions says, complete trust or confidence. Okay, so complete trust or confidence. That's pretty, that's 100%. Who can be so? All right. Well, I'll mention later on about sincerity, but who can really have 100% faith? I think it's very few people can achieve 100% faith in something. Okay, so now usually it's in our, when we're talking about faith, we're talking about either, well, the other definition in there says a strong belief in God or in the doctrines of religion, right? Based on spiritual apprehension rather than proof, right? So faith, especially today, right? Science is very advanced, and so people kind of, in the past, science was, what was what was not advanced at all. And so our understanding of the world came more about from our own experiences and from faith. Whereas today, it's pretty much almost all based on science. That our understanding of the world and how we relate to the world is through science rather than faith. Okay, so it's kind of like the opposite now. And so faith, but faith is what we need for the things that we don't understand, that we don't fully know, or what science does not, cannot tell us. Okay, so when we're talking about God, or we're talking about spirits, we're talking about this Buddha nature, the science has no answer for that right now. And so if we just rely entirely on science and we have no faith, then we won't believe these things, right? So faith, yeah, I mean, there's a certain amount of belief. You can say faith is a strong belief, as it says, in something that's based on spiritual apprehension rather than proof, proof by science, for example. So in the Tao, we try to talk about the Tao, but ultimately that essence is something indescribable, and it's not something that science can give us an answer to, and so that's why we still have to have this faith. Okay, now the important thing is that it's not blind faith. Okay, blind faith or belief. Okay, so there now there are people who fall into that where they blindly believe and have faith in something or someone. That's very dangerous. I mean, that's also showing that those people have no wisdom, okay, that they cannot figure out, understand, realize for themselves, what is really true, okay. So it's not blind faith or belief or faith in a person or specific teaching. It's sad when you see that there are these people who they follow certain leaders. Okay, these leaders, these people. I mean, they claim to be certain. Maybe they claim to be some Messiah or a prophet or whatever, and they're very charismatic. Okay, so it's very easy to fall for them and to really like them and follow them. But and so you end up with these cults. Okay, today, I mean, you don't hear. I haven't heard anything about any cults. Religious cults for quite a while. But in the past, there have been many of these religious cults where like Jim Jones or David Koresh, right? These guys, they're using the scripture, they're using the teachings in their own way, okay, and then they're misleading the people, but unfortunately, then what happens is these people, they have this blind faith or belief, and they follow these people blindly without realizing, and so they'll do whatever they tell them. So in case of the Jim Jones, in the end, he told everyone to commit suicide, basically to drink the Kool-Aid, okay, and so they all committed suicide, and so that's kind of crazy. So we have to be careful not to fall into this blind faith and belief. So that's why in the Tao, when we receive the Tao, I always tell people that don't take my word for it. Don't take anyone's word for it. You have to truly understand and realize for yourself what the truth is. Okay, I cannot tell you that, this is the truth. You have to believe this. Okay, so that's what religion does, basically. The religious it's a dogma. And their doctrine is, you have to believe this. This is the word of God or whatever. And so whatever is written here, that is the truth, and you have to accept that. I say we should question. If we have questions, we have to clear our doubts. If we have any doubts, we cannot have faith. We cannot. I mean, basically, doubts are eating away at our faith. Okay, so, and they weaken our faith, and so any doubts that we have, we must address those doubts. Okay, so that's why it's always important to ask questions. And if we have any kind of question, doubts, we in our mind, we have to make sure we can clear those up. And only we can do that for ourselves, okay? But of course, we ask others, try to give us the answers, but to help us to clear them up, okay? All right, and then so we're careful that we don't follow person or even specific teachings, because again, the teachings, the dharmas are not perfect, okay? They're not complete. And so the only true dharma is the wordless dharma. So anything that we place our faith in specific words, it could be misleading, okay, if we don't truly understand the truth behind it, the true principles behind it. All right, so faith in the truth or in the Tao, that's what we're talking about. We want to have this true faith in the Tao. Faith is an awakening. It's the foundation of the Bodhi or wisdom, okay, so that is something that it's essential, okay? It's essential in any kind of practice in our cultivation to achieve enlightenment. We still need this faith. So it's not, some people, they say, oh, this is all superstitious and stuff like that, because they're taking a view from science where they cannot explain a lot of these things. But we have to have that faith, all right? That's very important. That is, going to be our foundation for our cultivation. Okay. So faith, 100% faith. Now, I said that no one really has 100% faith. Why? Okay, so what is that 100% faith? So that faith is like, I think it was in Matthew, in the Bible, like Matthew 25. Okay, so Jesus, this is where Jesus walks on water, right? So basically, Jesus told his disciples to go out in the boat and across the lake, and Jesus would meet up with them later on. At night, the disciples, they were out in the boat in the middle of the lake, and then it's kind of a little bit stormy, and Jesus he walks out to them on the water. Okay, so he is walking on the water, and when the disciples see him, they think it's they're afraid. They think it's a ghost. They don't know who it is. And it says Peter says, oh, if you're Jesus, then ask me to walk out to meet you. And so Jesus beckons him to come over, come out of the boat and walk over to me. So Peter starts to walk out on the water, and it's fine until he started hearing the wind and feeling the waves, and he started becoming afraid. Okay, so he had fear, and you can say that he kind of lost his faith a little bit at that moment, and he started to sink. Okay, so he was walking on water initially, and then he cried out, Lord, save me. So Jesus reached out and caught him, saying, you of little faith, why did you doubt? Okay, so Jesus, of course, he is fully in faith. 100% faith in basically, you can say he has self-confidence. Okay, he has that confidence in his Buddha nature. Okay, so that he can do whatever he wants. Basically, he can walk on water. Okay, so that's no big deal. But Peter, he initially had that faith, but then he lost that faith as soon as the conditions. He realized what the conditions were, and he started sinking. So that's what Jesus says. You lost. You have so little faith. Okay, you have this doubt in your mind. So this doubt, again. So this is kind of illustrating that, as soon as we have any doubts in our mind, that we don't have that true faith. That will limit us. That will become an obstacle for us to achieve our ultimate goal, right? People who, they say, oh yeah, I've been so faithful throughout my life, and I pray, and I pray to ultimately to achieve something, to get something, and it doesn't happen. Okay, so let's say it's for health reasons. Let's say I'm a person is sick, and they keep praying. They're sincere, but ultimately, they don't get what they want, and people, when that happens, a lot of people, they just give up. They just give up the faith and say, "Oh, this is useless." But we have to keep the faith. Now, the problem there is not whether one is sincere or not, or whether one has that faith. For example, in terms of, let's say, a person is sick, that they don't get better, they don't get well. It's misplaced in the sense that they were expecting that, but maybe that's not something that ultimately that they would get. Okay, so basically, what we have faith in, how we place that faith is very important. All right. Okay. But we do have. I do have to admit that there are people out there who have very strong faith, right? And they are willing to basically do anything. They're willing to sacrifice their lives for what they believe in. Okay, so and that is the type of faith that I hope that we have. Okay, it's such a strong faith. It's not that we would just without good reason for to sacrifice ourselves, but as long as it's if the need comes, that we would be willing to be able to do that. Okay, so in the past, our predecessors, the grand predecessors, patriarchs, they've all been through those situations, and they're willing to sacrifice their lives for this Tao. Okay, all right. So faith is also our compass. Right, it's a guide for us that to achieve the ultimate goal. Our ultimate goal is enlightenment, right? The Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, basically Buddhahood. Okay, to transcend. Okay, the first goal is to transcend the cycle of life and death, and then to ultimately reach that level of enlightenment, the supreme, unsurpassed enlightenment. Okay, that seems kind of far away for us from us right now, but that is something. That's the ultimate goal, right? So okay. All right. So why do we make vows then? Why do we need vows? Okay. So for personal achievement, to overcome challenges, right? Let's see. Okay. Okay. So again, if we have certain issues in life that we encounter, difficulties, we want to say, or that we have a certain goal that I want to achieve something, that people make these vows, okay, or so that's more kind of personal for ourselves, okay. So the vows for the ultimate result is something that benefits ourselves, okay. Or we can also make vows to help other people, okay, to help others, other sentient beings, for example, or the world, in general. We can make those types of vows, and of course that's better. We should not, a lot of people, they come into religion or into the Tao to seek something for themselves, some benefit. Whether even if it's like they have this personal issue, the hardship, disease, illness, whatever, that they are seeking help from the Buddhas to. Okay, so you see a lot of those people. They come in. They're willing to try. You can say try to to receive this Tao, to bless. We kind of sell this. Well, we don't sell it, but we kind of say as receiving the Tao is like you get this blessing, and so so a lot of people they feel like they want a blessing, and so but they come in with a motive, right? A motive to want to get something out of it, and so unfortunately they didn't come in because of faith, right? And because they're lacking this faith, again, depending on the conditions, on the situation, as the situation, either their situation doesn't change or it gets worse or whatever, because they don't have faith, they came in for that particular motive that, that then there's no reason for them to come again, that to follow through with this anymore. And then so they leave and, that's it. So unfortunately, a lot of people that's the case. Okay, that's how they come in. And so really, when we come in and receive the Tao, it should be based on the faith alone. Okay, right. But to help others, okay, so that's we sometimes we make vows to do that, to help those that are loved ones or those who are close to us or those who have helped us in the past, have been our benefactors, and now that they're in need, in time of need, that we make a vow to help them. Okay. All right. So this, okay, an example here. When my mother was sick, right? She had cancer, right? So we in the Tao we say, okay, so we can do the bowing, right? The kato, the bowing, and we can make a vow to try to help, because we say that when we do that, the Buddhas can help us, okay, and that's true. But of course we need merits as well, okay. So, but so I initially, what I was doing was, okay, so I was asking God, Lamu, the Buddhas, for help to say, try to cure, I guess cure her cancer. Okay, so I would bow, 1,000 bows, in the morning and evening every day. But after, a few months, I realized that, wait, this is probably not going to work. I mean, it's not that I didn't have faith. It's just that I realized that, just doing that is not going to help, because, I am asking the Buddhas for help, but what am I giving in return? Yes, I'm doing the bows, but it's trying to show some sincerity, but that by itself is not enough. Again, we need merits, okay? So I kind of had a change in mindset. So instead of asking for the cure, because I thought, well, that's asking too much. Okay, so I decided to say, okay, how about because she's undergoing some treatment like chemo, right? She's getting chemo. At that time, she was just getting chemo, and I said, okay, because I know that when you get chemo, it's very uncomfortable. It can be painful, and so I said, okay, so how about this? I'll continue to do the bowing, and what I ask is that she not suffer as much, while she's getting the treatment. Okay, so and so I said, okay, well, I probably cannot take, because the Buddhists say we cannot really take. Even the Buddhists themselves, they cannot take away someone's karma, okay? And so those debts has to be repaid. And so we can't really substitute for someone else, okay, in taking on that karma. And so I said, okay, so, I'll just take half, okay? So basically, what I want to do is, let her not suffer so much or feel, have pain or discomfort so much. I'll take on half of that. Okay. So that was my vow. Okay. So I, vow every day. Now, so ultimately, she passed away basically about a year after she was diagnosed. And so, now when she was getting the treatment, she didn't really suffer much. Okay, she wasn't in pain. She never told me, anyways. I mean, but she wasn't really in much discomfort either. I mean, she had a little an incision in her side where she had a tube coming out, because her cancer was, it was on the bile duct. Okay, so basically, they were afraid that although they cleared it, that duct, they were afraid that it would get clogged again by the cancer, and then so that bile would just flow throughout the body. Okay, so they stuck a tube in the side to drain that just in case. Okay, so there might have been some kind of discomfort there. Okay, but because of that, but from the treatment, she really didn't have any discomfort. Now, then a year later, after she passed, but up until that time, I didn't suffer any pain or anything like that. So I didn't think about it. But a year later, when we are building this temple, we're completing it. Okay, so it's basically the day. I think it was the day before. It might have been the day before we were going to open. And we were working on. There are a lot of people here working on it, trying to finish things up. And I put so I was also helping out. I put up a ladder to climb up and do some, I don't know, I was pulling some wire or something. And unfortunately, the ladder slipped. I fell. Okay, so I fell and hurt basically both my arms. Basically the elbows. I didn't break any bones, but I fell and yeah, maybe did some internal damage. Basically, I mean, and then and that hurt. And so I went to see this bone doctor, this Chinese bone doctor, and he's like. The way they do it, right? They extract a lot of pain from you. It's like he's squeezing it because there's blood inside that's kind of become hardened. Okay, so he's trying to break that up, and as he's squeezing the elbow and all that, and it's like is the worst pain I ever felt. Okay, so later I realized that well. To me, anyways, I felt that this was the fulfilling of my vow. Okay, that I would take on, her pain and some of her pain, half of her pain and discomfort, and that it ended up, happening then. Now, when it happens is, it depends on the conditions, the circumstances again. So karma, remember, karma, to have the karma result. Basically depends on the conditions, right? The conditions have to be right, and so it was a year later. So when we were trying to put the finishing touches on the temple, that was when the condition was right. Where I put the ladder up, I climbed to the top. I was not careful in putting up the ladder. Okay, it was at the angle was too shallow, so that it slipped. Okay, so now normally I would be very, very careful, but thinking back to that, I say, well, what? I wasn't so careful in doing that, in placing the ladder, and so that's where karma. In this case, this is the karma or the result of, I would think that vow that I did made, so that allowed me to fall. And to basically fulfill this karma, if you will. Okay, we can call it out a karma, and so that's so. Anyways, that's something. I think a lot of people we do make vows to help others, especially when we've had Tao members who they've been having some kind of illness. And our holy teacher tells us that we should, we should vow and we should dedicate merits to that person. Okay, to that person's the karmic debt collectors. Okay, the debt holders. Okay, so these are the ones, the spirits that are causing that illness because they're getting payback. They want payback. Okay, for their suffering. And so that we would dedicate merits to them to help to kind of, because if they get merits, then, they might well, the hope is that they are willing to kind of, okay, forgive a little bit and, not extract the full payment back, okay, that they'll take merits in instead, okay. So we've done that in temple, but sometimes it doesn't necessarily work, okay. I mean, for various reasons. I mean, so either we printed books in their name, to dedicate merits to them. When we get the merits from bringing people to receive the Tao, and we dedicate it to them, and despite all that, it's kind of somewhat disheartening when we see that it had no effect. It seems like it had no effect. But we still, because we don't fully understand the karma, okay, we don't fully know what that karma was, and so it's very difficult for us to judge. We should not judge right away, say, well, how come we did all this and it still didn't change the outcome, okay, it didn't do anything. But we don't know. I mean, maybe that outcome will come, our expected outcome will happen later on, okay, we don't know. But we should not, just say, oh, give up on the faith because of that, all right? So that's very important, that as long as we understand the true principles, we understand the principles are correct, are right, are true, and we follow, we go according to those principles. And even though the outcome is not certainly necessarily something that we expect, we should still keep to those principles. It's not because the principles are wrong, okay? It's because maybe it's our expectations, okay, that are not what they should be, all right? All right, so, let's see. All right, so others vows for carrying out the holy mission. So in terms of like the Tao, we have the Tao today because of our patriarchs. Okay, so the patriarchs, there's a lineage of Tao, that this Tao mandate, the transmission of the Tao, okay, has been passed down over centuries, over thousands of years. Okay, and because of and it is passed down through human beings. Okay, so it goes from person to person, and so that's what we call them, the patriarchs. Okay, so for over 1,000 years, and their mission, they have a vow they have this mandate of this transmission of the Tao, and they have to pass it on to the next successor. Okay, so no matter what. Now, there are some cases, in history where they did not pass it on. Okay, so whether, I mean, we can't say that, oh, they didn't fulfill their duty. It's just that when they look at the circumstances, they look at the conditions, they say, well, they didn't seem to find the right person. Now that might have been because either they didn't really fully have that wisdom or the confidence or the faith that, oh, this is the right person, etc. But eventually, then when that happens, of course, then you can say heaven, God steps in and kind of assigns the mandate to the next person. Okay, but anyway, so patriarchs, our predecessors, also make the vows to basically carry out this mission of propagating the Tao, especially now in this white period, the white era that we're in, right? It's not just the patriarch passing it to the next patriarch, but now it's propagating Tao to all, the three realms, okay, even the spiritual realms, but also to all humans, all sentient beings, okay. So they also make vows. Predecessors make this vow to spread, to continue with this Tao. So that's why we have the Tao available to us today. I mean, if they did not make these vows, the Tao probably would not have spread beyond, China and Taiwan. Okay, so, but we'll get to those. Though there's some other, the vows that made in Dharma class. But okay, so vows. Okay, it's an expression of our conviction and an affirmation of our faith. Okay, so starting with sincerity. Remember, show that diagram where faith and sincerity is the core of our being. And so from there, you have sincerity. Okay, so sincerity, yeah, and faith. Okay, you need those two. That leads to vows. Okay, so faith without vows is, it's not blind faith, but it's just you're not going to achieve just having faith. Okay, alone. Okay, you need vows, and vows help us to do, the lead to the next thing, which is action. Okay, so vows are like the bridge between faith and action or cultivation. In our case, we're talking about cultivation. Okay, so we need both. Okay, we have to have faith, we have to have vows, and of course, when we have vows, we have to have action. We have to cultivate. Okay, all right. So these vows, faith and vows are also give us that inner power. Okay, remember that song, I believe, where it says that inner power. That inner power comes from our faith and our vows. All right, and this is like this force that helps us to achieve that goal, our goals. All right. Okay. All right. So there are three types of people that Buddha cannot ferry. Okay, so this is what Buddha says. Okay, so those who do not have the affinity, right, with the Buddha, you can say, or with the Tao. So these are non-believers. Okay, and they won't, or they don't accept the truth. They don't accept what the Buddha is teaching. Okay. Second is those who do not believe or have the faith. Okay, so and then the third is those who are not willing to make vows. They're not willing, or they don't make vows. So right away, 2 out of the 3, are here. So we're talking about faith and vows, and so we don't have both of these. At least, Buddha can't help us. Okay, so we have to have both. The affinity part, that's something that we already have, in that the affinity is like this karmic affinity, this connection, that we already have this part because we're able to receive the Tao, and we're here today listening, learning, the way of the Buddha. Okay, so at least we have that affinity. All right, so yeah, okay. Now, so affinity, okay, so you have affinity plus the sincerity, leading to faith, which then also leads to the vows, and then to the action or the cultivation, and finally the realization or the achievement. Okay, so that's kind of the process that we go through, that everyone should go through. Well, all Buddhas, they go through this process, actually, to become a Buddha, all right? So we go through we have to go through the same process. Now, so the question is, so do we also have this affinity to follow the truth, right? So that's what we call faith, and then the affinity gives rise to this faith. Okay, so without this affinity, we cannot have true faith. Now, do we also have the faith to achieve that truth? Okay, to achieve that ultimate goal. So this is the vows. The vows. So the faith gives us rise to vows. Without true faith, our vows cannot help us to achieve that truth. Okay, so again, that faith should be unwavering, right? And okay, so what comes after vows is the practice or the cultivation, which ultimately leads to the realization or achievement of, the highest goal, of course, is that Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, right? The unexcelled supreme enlightenment. Okay, let's see. Okay, so. Power. Okay, so the power of faith and vows, right? Vows show our faith and sincerity, right? A strong belief, so it's basically we have the strong belief, or faith, and then there's a promise followed by the action. Okay, so and it persists until the end. All right, so the vows that we make, it's for the rest of our lives. Okay, so we should not give up on the vows halfway, all right, or any time down the road. We should maintain them until the end, all right? That's the only way that we can achieve. It would be sad if we put in all that effort and hard work, and maybe we endure a lot of suffering, etc. In the meantime, and then we give up before we achieve. Then that's we wasted that time. Okay, we wasted this life. Okay, so we don't want to do that. Vows can change our fate, right? Again, so vows, if we, let's say, the Buddhists tell us to, when we are in these situations where we find ourselves in with this karma, where karmic debt catches up to us, that we need to do more. Okay, so that we need to make vows to. Now, these vows could be things like, I vowed to, bring 100 people to receive the Tao. Okay, because that in terms of merit, that's like bringing someone to receive the Tao. That's a lot of merit, of course, because you're trying to save their soul, basically. Okay, so when we do that, then now, of course, that's a promise that we're going to do it. Now, whether we set a time frame or not, as long as we are actively trying to do it, okay, in the process of fulfilling this vow, the Buddhas will help us, okay, and ultimately, perhaps we cannot achieve that goal, okay. So just like our 18th patriarch, right? At that time, he wanted to uplift his deceased father, soul, and at the time, the rule was that you had to bring 100 people to receive the Tao to get have enough merits to be able to do that. And try as he may, he could only get 64. Okay, so he tried, but ultimately God was merciful and said, okay, so 64 would be enough to do that. But sometimes we can, through our sincerity, through our effort, okay, we can touch heaven. We can change. We can bring about some changes. Okay. But so we have to do our best to fulfill our vows. We really we have to put in our best effort. Okay, so we can't. That's really what heaven, what the Buddhas, what God is looking at is what effort we're putting into it. Okay, not necessarily whether we achieve that ultimate goal, whatever the vow is for, but whether we're really putting in the effort and a sincere effort. Okay, that's what's more important. Okay, and then the Buddhas will help us try to achieve these vows. Okay, so why? Because the Buddhas, they feel like they are one with us. Okay, so as long as we're talking about holy vows here, things like that. And so the Buddhas, obviously, they feel that they are us. And so they will try to help us achieve those vows too. Okay, because ultimately they want to see us achieve Buddhahood as well. All right. Okay. Okay. Okay, so the Buddhists also say, they say that, whether, in a lot of these, in the religions as well, so like Jesus or the Buddhas, they say, our holy teacher, right, they say they're always with us, right? And basically, and that's true, actually. So like, for example, when we are giving the class, right, so right now, I am occupying the seat of, the Dharma King is well, in the Chinese, when it translated, it's called the Dharma King, okay, the seat of the Dharma King, that we are speaking the Dharma, okay. So because we are speaking the Dharma of the truth, right, the Buddha's Dharma, then obviously we represent the Buddha, and so in this position, and so the Buddha will be with us. Okay, so and so anytime that we are thinking of Buddha, or whoever thinking of God, they are in our heart and mind. Okay, they are with us. Okay, so that's why it's always good to, we should always be thinking about them and keep them in our minds, right? Now, there's this poem, okay, that talks about a dream, okay, in which this man sees his footprints in the sand, okay, during his journey in life, right? Most of the time, he sees two sets of footprints, okay, but when he noticed that certain times he sees only one set of footprints, and these are the times when his life was, in the dumps. Okay, it's like the worst times in his life. All right, and when things were very difficult and rocky. Okay, and so in this dream, I guess, the man says, says the Lord, okay, so I understand that, throughout most of my life, the Lord is walking with me. Okay, that's why there are two sets of prints. But, why during those times when things are so difficult and I have basically all but given up hope that there are only one set of footprints, why have you abandoned me during those times? But the Lord said, actually, those were the times when I was carrying you. Okay, so that's why you only see one set of prints. Those aren't your prints. Those are my footprints. Okay, so what this means is that we must have the faith. Okay, so that the Buddhas are always with us. It's just that, because from our kind of egocentric point of view, the human point of view, we think, it's everything is based on my own power, that I am struggling through life. Okay, but not necessarily. I mean, a lot of times, we don't know that the Buddhas are actually helping us and mitigating, making things not as bad as they would have been, but we don't see that. And so, when we see those set of footprints, we think, oh, those are our own, but they're not. Actually, we're being carried by them, and it's really so it's important that we have that faith. The faith can carry us through all these difficulties. When we have that faith, the Buddhas are with us. Okay, so we should not give up the faith, right? No matter what happens. Okay, so it's just like, today we talk about Dharma boat. Okay, so the temple, our cultivation, we're in this Dharma boat. The Dharma boat is trying to get to the other shore, the shore of enlightenment. Okay, so just like in the so we might hit some rough seas, okay, at times, and when things it seems like things are so bad that we say, oh, we've almost given up our hope. But just like Jesus walking on water, right? We have to have that true faith and that will to continue on. That is what sometimes that is really the only thing that's carrying us forward. That's carrying us, letting us continue. In life, okay, or in this case, maybe through our cultivation. Okay, so that's why don't underestimate the power of faith. Okay, faith and vows. Okay, so actually, it's all of these things. Actually, in the right, you'll notice let me see, back here, right in the Dharma class, right. The last topic in the Dharma class is what? In Chinese, it's 信愿行正, faith, vows, action, and achievement. Okay, so that's why that's the last topic in the Dharma class is to, we're hopefully when we completed the Dharma class, we're at that point where, yes, maybe we have some faith. It's time to make those vows and to cultivate, to take the action, to cultivate, and ultimately to achieve Buddhahood. Okay, so there's a reason why that topic is there. Okay, in the Dharma class. All right. Anyways, okay. So, okay. So in talking about the karmic debts, right? Holy Teacher said the bigger the karmic debt, the greater our vow must be to offset it, right? So everyone has karmic debts, okay? So this is unavoidable, right? Unless we're born as a saint and we've never killed, we've never eaten meat, all these things, we've always been good, then we have probably no debts. But we all have, for most of us, we all have debts. Okay, so how do we deal with this debt? So we have this debt is like this stone, okay? And we're carrying this stone. If, let's say, and we have to cross, I don't know, whatever analogy you want to use, crossing the river, crossing the lake with the stone. Now, obviously, it's very difficult to do that. Try swimming across the lake, right? But then swim across the lake with a stone tied to your back. Okay, so most of us probably won't make it. So what we need is our vows. Okay, so the vow is like the boat that can, keep us afloat with that karmic debt. All right, so that's very important. And but the magnitude. Okay, so the greatness of our vow has to match the debt. Okay, so let's say if the debt is huge, it's very heavy. So the vow that we had originally, the small vow, well, that's not enough. We're still gonna sink, and therefore we need a much bigger vow. Okay, so to carry us through, and so that's why the greater our debts, the greater our vows must be, and so it has to match. So this is the force of vows can overcome the force or can overcome this heavy karmic debts. Right, so that's why sometimes we say, oh, I'm doing enough. I'm doing enough. Why isn't this? Why isn't it getting better? Well, it just means that we're not doing enough. I mean, the fact that it's not getting better means that what we think is enough is really not enough. Okay, so there's always more. We have to do more. Okay, so we are now, for most of us, maybe we aren't in that kind of situation, but we should still make vows, as kind of an insurance. Okay, we can think of it then as an insurance, as a preventive measure to prevent, because once the karmic debt comes to us, it's kind of late. It's already a little bit late, and so we have to do kind of take preventive measures, and so we have to accumulate merits and make these vows first to help us along, right? It is said that when we receive the Tao, right, Holy Teacher kind of blocks our karmic debts for 3 years, right, and to give us a chance to establish ourselves, right, in cultivation, to start building up some merits, and to establish our vows, so that we can then deal with these karmic debts when they do come, right? So, but Holy Teacher cannot block them off forever, right? Again, that is one of the things that the Buddhas cannot do. They cannot change our karma, and so our karma is still ours to deal with and to resolve. And so we have to do that we do it through performing merits and making these vows. Okay. All right. So all Buddhas make vows. Bodhisattvas, okay, Buddhas. In this case, 4 great vows, right? Buddha makes, right? The sentient beings are innumerable. I vow to vary them all, okay? Afflictions are endless. I vow to extinguish them all. Dharma teachings are infinite. I vow to master them all. Perfect enlightenment is unsurpassed. I vow to achieve it. Okay, so these are Buddha's 4 vows. And basically all Buddhas make vows that are kind of some variation of these, okay? Or, some variations or some more narrowly focused vows but they are based on these 4 vows, okay? So you can see these are very great, okay? So obviously all sentient beings, vow to ferry them all, save them all, guide them towards enlightenment, okay? So that's a great vow. The afflictions that we suffer, sentient beings suffer, try to extinguish them. Okay, so you can say that those first 2 are kind of more focused external, perhaps, and then the second 2 are kind of focused more internal, all right? But actually, there's both internal and external aspects for both. Okay, so all right, so for example, in Guanyin Bodhisattva, we know, okay, one of the vows that she made is that, she would not attain Buddhahood unless all sentient beings in the world are saved. Okay, so obviously, when is that going to happen? I don't know. It looks like it take who knows how many cycles of the world is going to, before that happens. It's probably will never happen. But why? But they still make this vow. Why? Obviously, from a Buddha's point of view, they have eternity to work with. Okay, so it's not just like one lifetime. Now when we make vows, it's for right now. It's for this one lifetime. Okay, so something that we can achieve in this one lifetime. But the Buddhists, they make the vows for eternity, right? So, but even though as a as a bodhisattva, Guan Yin made this vow, but now she has this title, Ancient Buddha of the Southern Seas. Okay, so she's already become a Buddha, despite the fact that she hasn't achieved this vow, hasn't fulfilled this vow completely. Okay, but because again, obviously Buddhists, they have that sincerity, that 100% sincerity, that they're going to keep doing it, to keep working on this, fulfilling this vow forever, basically. All right, so they already become a Buddha. And Siddhagarbha Buddha, same thing, the Buddha in the underworld. Okay, so he's not going to attain Buddhahood unless all souls in hell are saved. In other words, if hell is empty. Okay, there are no more people in hell. But yet, as a bodhisattva, he made this vow, but yet now his title is Ancient Buddha of the Earth Store. Earth Store is basically Siddhagarbha. Okay, so that's the translation of that. He's already a Buddha. He has the status of Buddha. Okay, so vows are very powerful. Okay, so they can help us to achieve. So it help these bodhisattvas. They become a Buddha. All right, so our vows, although our vows are not as great, okay, they're not so, they're a little bit more focused and limited in scope and time, but again, they can help us to achieve as well, right? Okay. Okay, so vows help us to cultivate, right, to guide us to achieve our goals. It's that compass. And help us to focus on the goals, right? So once we have a vow, it's this promise, and especially if we make it formal, then it's like in the public record, if you will. Then say, oh, okay, so people will know if I achieve my vow. So we can focus on doing it, and it motivates us to fulfill these goals, okay, that we set. They help us to achieve selflessness. Okay, so again, these predecessors. They've made this vow called basically to bear the burden of the calamities to save the world. Okay, so they're willing to take on the suffering and to try to alleviate, to mitigate it for others, for the other cultivators, so that they can have an easier time, a better time to cultivate. Right. So just like our divine matriarch, holy matriarch, right? So when she went to Taiwan. She vowed to, because seeing how the conditions were pretty difficult for her followers in Taiwan to cultivate and propagate the Tao, she vowed that she would never go out. She would basically be under her own house arrest, if you will, and do 10,000 vows every day, right? To plead with God for forgiveness, and to lessen, to make it easy, to let her followers be able to propagate, to cultivate, and to propagate the Tao. Okay, so she did that, when she got to Taiwan and until she passed away, and so she kept her vow and she did it. So and you can say because of her vow that really it made it easier for us, for this Tao to spread all over the world, and for us to be able to be here today to learn, to receive the Tao and to cultivate. All right. Okay. So what? Okay. So time is getting short. All right. We'll go on. So all right. So these 10 great vows I'm going to mention. I don't know if you realize that. When you received the Tao, you made these 10 great vows. Okay, so if you didn't know it, if you didn't realize that, if you didn't know it, it's the fault of the person. We're supposed to explain this to you when you receive the Tao. Okay, And basically, I mean, these vows are not, we say the 10 great vows, but it's really, it's not like those big vows that the Buddhas make. Okay, so these are not something that we cannot do. Okay, so for example, I mean, it starts off, I embrace with a sincere heart, basically this Tao, okay, that I'm receiving. Okay, so let's maintain that Buddha, that true heart, okay, that true mind. Right, our true nature is of the Bodhi, that Bodhi mind is originally pure and tranquil. Okay, so simply use this upright heart to attain Buddhahood. All right, so it should not be a selfish heart, mind. Right, I will truly repent and cultivate. Okay, so that's the second one. Basically, we have to get rid of our vices. Okay, get rid of our vices, our bad tempers, our habits. Okay, things like that. Okay, so, all right, it doesn't mean that necessarily, 100% we become a saint overnight. Okay, so this is something that is a lifetime. Okay, we have to work on these over our lifetime. If I'm sincere or insincere or have false pretenses. Okay, so this is saying, I was saying earlier that a lot of people, they receive the Tao they have their own agenda, their own motive, okay, for receiving the Tao. It's like, they want to get something in return, some benefit, personal benefit. If that's the case, that's actually going against this for the most part, okay? So already, those people who receive the Tao and they're not really sincere about having this faith in the Tao, they're already failing in this one here, okay? So that's why my personal recommendation is that we should, for some people, definitely we have to tell them that they're going to make they're going to make these vows, okay? And we should really explain what these are first. And that's why I always believe that the people that receive the Tao, that we bring to receive the Tao, should be sincere. If they're not sincere, then I think it would be a disservice, actually, to them. It would not help them to receive the Tao. Okay, it might be hard for them, actually. Okay, so I think just because that they're willing, that they can walk into the temple, and usually it's people pulling them in, and so that's not good. Okay, that's really not helping them at all. Okay, so it's better to help them to understand it first. All right, that's my idea, anyways. Okay, so if I regress instead of progress, again, we are, as cultivators, we are swimming upstream against the current. Okay, the current is, like, for example, what we see in society today, everyone is going towards, getting more things, material stuff, and, pursuing these things, wealth, fame, power. Okay, we have to go against that. We don't want, so we have to let go of that and seek the truth. And seek that ultimate enlightenment, okay? That's what we are going for. So that's kind of going against the stream. And so in using that analogy also, that if we are just standing in place, then we are being pushed back by the stream. And so that we are not making progress. So if we don't make progress, we are regressing. In other words, there's no such thing as standing still, okay? So either we're moving forward or we're moving backward. And so we should always do our best to keep moving forward, making progress. If I deceive the teachers and disclaim the patriarchs, okay, so again, who are our teachers and the patriarchs, okay, we know, and then teachers are those also who come before us, the predecessors as well, as, our holy teachers and patriarchs. There's something called that's part of our golden thread, and we should not leave that golden thread. Our golden thread is our link, is our safety line to return back to heaven. So, all right, if I despise the predecessors, okay, we look down upon them, maybe because a lot of these predecessors, they actually they don't have much of an education. Okay, so you look at a lot of even the patriarchs. Some of the patriarchs, they were illiterate. All right, like the sixth patriarch Huineng, who's now the Siddhagarbha Buddha. Okay, so we cannot look down upon them because they don't have an education. All right, so education is not as important as wisdom. Okay, wisdom is greater, and so. But anyways, we should respect everyone anyways, and respect especially those who came before us. Okay, so predecessors are all those who come before us, right? I do not abide by the temple precepts, rules, and regulations. Okay, so basically, we have to follow the precepts in our cultivation, and also there's certain rules and regulations of the temple that we have to follow, right? And these are there to actually, they're not these don't exist to make life difficult for us, or there's a purpose. Okay, it's to help guide us in our cultivation. All right, and it's help us in our cultivation. And so we have to, when we view it that way, then it will definitely help. All right, if I reveal heaven's secrets, okay, so also we cannot reveal the three treasures. For most part, that means the three treasures that we receive in receiving the Tao. We can't reveal to others, right? It's only basically the person who has that mandate, which is the transmitting master. They can reveal it, or they can transmit it to us. If I conceal the Tao, okay, so this means two things. Basically, the Tao is within us. We have to manifest this Tao. Okay, so manifesting this Tao is, it's what we've been talking about for the past few weeks, is through the Tao of humanity, for example, expressing those virtues that we have, okay, practicing those virtues. And also the other side, you can say that's kind of from the internal, and then from the external is to let people know about the Tao, or to teach people about the Tao. Okay, so this is the two sides of it. And then if I do not perform to the best of my ability or to cultivate sincerely, all right, so again, this is what we have to put in our effort, okay, our true effort, our sincere effort, okay, so we have to do our best. Now, there is no one, we can't really quantify this or set a same standard for everyone, okay. This could be different. You can say this is relative to everyone. So what one person's best effort, it could be different from another person's best effort. All right, so we have to kind of know what we can do, what we can achieve in doing so. All right. Okay. Now, so those are the 10 basic vows that we all take when we receive the Tao. And that's, so those who are unwilling to, we've encountered people who, in the middle, as soon as they realize that they're beginning to make this vow, because it was not explained to them first, they suddenly stand up and say, wait a minute, what is this about these vows? You never told me about these vows. I'm not willing to do this. I can't make these vows. And so that's happened a few times that I know of, okay, that people in the middle of the ceremony, they walk out, okay, so we really, that's why I say we really should explain to those people. Some people are like that, and we have to explain it first to them, and that this is what they're getting into. And if they're not willing, then that's fine. That's their affinity. That's their karma. We can't force them. Okay. Rather than if we, go through the ceremony halfway and they walk out, that's worse. That's worse. Okay. Than not going through it at all. Okay. So really, we should not do that kind of thing. Okay. Make sure that doesn't happen. All right. Now, then we get to the Dharma class. Okay. So the Dharma class, we do take vows too. At the end, right? So remember the last topic is to kind of motivate us, to inspire us to continue and to take the vows, right? So basically, usually it's the first two and then maybe sometimes the third one. Okay, so these three that people will take, right? The first one is to emphasize the divine, the holy, or the divine over the mundane. So that just means that we spend more time, and again, there is no. So there's no fixed standard that says, oh, you have to spend this much time in the Tao, in learning about the Tao or whatever, cultivating. It's up to the individual, and it can change over time too. So maybe initially we don't spend as much time, but then we gradually we do more, Okay, so but basically it's to let go of, don't pursue those material things. Okay, don't pursue those. Don't emphasize those so much. The wealth, the power, the fame. Even education. Like pursuing these higher educations for unless it's it's for your career, but a lot of things that we don't have to pursue necessarily, and then we should emphasize more on the temple stuff, the Tao matters. Okay, so we should try to do that. And so basically, if we have a choice, so I right now, whether I want to go shopping or I can go to the temple and help or learn, then I should choose the latter. Okay, choose to come to the temple and learn. Okay, so that's what that is. And then contribute materially and spread the teachings. Okay, so again, everyone is at different levels of what they can do, but this is kind of a general vow, so that we try to contribute where we can. And then that third one, again, this is kind of a little bit more special. It's basically to stop the accumulation of karma from one's mouth. Okay, so basically we call that the vegetarian vow. All right, but it's not just what we eat, but it's what's coming out of our mouth. That's why so I kind of describe it this way: stop the accumulation of karma from one's mouth, whether it's coming in or going out. Okay, so this vow, again, not everyone is able to take this vow right away. I mean, we have to basically practice. We have to see if we can do it, right? Because once we take this vow, we cannot go back, all right? So, and this is for the rest of our lives. Okay, so and then just for completeness, the other three vows in the Dharma class is to dedicate oneself to Tao affairs, to establish a Tao temple, okay, and to pioneer Tao in other places. So, and these are greater vows, okay, so obviously pioneering Tao in other places. So you are basically spreading the Tao in place where no one has heard of the Tao, and you can kind of say that's a lot of places here, but there's a lot of we don't want to think of it in terms of merit, but there is more merit in these things. Okay, but anyways, all right. So conclusion. All right. So faith and vows, they go hand in hand. All right. Let's see. Where am I? All right. They go hand in hand. All right. So okay. So faith is the motivating force, which must be unwavering. Again, don't give up the faith just because we've encountered some obstacles, some difficulties that seem to be insurmountable. Okay. The stronger our faith, the greater our ability to overcome. All right. Vows are the driving force to act or to cultivate and to achieve, right? So we need these vows to kind of push us, basically, to cultivate and to achieve the goal. Success is given to those who persist until the end. So the vows also, because they're vows for this lifetime that help us to achieve, and so we don't want to give up, halfway. And so the vows kind of remind us that, I made this promise that I cannot break. I should not break this promise until my last breath. Okay, so I'll do my best to try to achieve it. And the Buddhas, again, they can help us more if we have these vows, right? Okay, so because we already have the affinity to receive the Tao and be here to learn more about the Tao, it would be a waste, right, of this good affinity if we did not take advantage of this opportunity to establish our faith and vows. If our goal is to achieve Buddhahood, then we must make and fulfill vows, right? Okay. So here's a song. It's actually an English song by a holy teacher. Morning has broken. That's the melody. Says, faith will move mountains, right? That's kind of a common thing that we hear. Faith can move mountains. So it's actually faith. In this case, when we're talking about faith, it's really the whole thing: faith, vows, all that. And so, faith can move mountains. Hold on forever. Take your holy duty on your shoulder. Okay, so the holy duty that we have is this. Well, for one, to ourselves, is for us to achieve Buddhahood. Okay, or at least to transcend this cycle of life and death, and to towards the external is to help others to achieve the same, right? So use your own power and spread the Tao all over. Okay, make your living world become better. I am your teacher, your great supporter. Guide you to enter the Tao center. Enlighten you and give you mighty power. Make your true life become nicer. Let's go on the way and do the job together. All right, no matter what you will encounter, I'll be with you ever and ever. Try your best to cross the river. Okay, so again, Holy Teacher is saying that he will always be with us because we are his disciples, right? He is the one who is in charge of this Tao affairs during this time. And so when we receive the Tao, we are his disciples, and he will always try to, just like the teacher will always try to help the student to achieve, he is there to help us to achieve as well, right? So, all right, skip this. All right, so again, so finally, may the power of faith and vows be with you. This is, I hope that, because a lot of you perhaps are relatively new in the sense that you've received Tao. Maybe you didn't attend a Dharma class yet, or you have attended a Dharma class, but you haven't really taken the next steps really in terms of this path of this journey of cultivation, and that hopefully this kind of give you a better understanding of why we do these things, why we make these vows, and why this faith is very important. So that I would ask the Buddhas, saints, to forgive me if I had said anything wrong or said things that are not satisfactory, and I ask the transmitting masters and lecturers for their corrections. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Lecture time?
Yeah, transmitter Lynn.
Yeah, a couple of points here. Yeah, you talk about a vegetarian vow. There's a big difference for a person who makes vegetarian vow and not making the vegetarian vow. Because if we don't make a vegetarian vow, we dedicate it, we devote it, or we donate it. Heaven only probably give 50% of the merits. The reason because our debtors should be other 50%. So that's a big difference to make a vegetarian vow and don't make vegetarian vows.
Yeah. Yeah. So right. Yeah, I didn't mention that. The vows are a commitment, right? We are committing to doing something, and so it's kind of like you can get an advance from that. Okay, so whereas if I don't make a vow, maybe I do this. Let's say in this case, vegetarian. Okay, so I'm a vegetarian. I say, oh, I'm already a vegetarian. Why do I need to make this vow? Well, we can always change our mind for one, because there's nothing that keep us to say that, oh, I must do this, okay, for the rest of my life. So a vow kind of makes it formal that we do that, and so there is more power to that. Just like Transmitter Lin says, that in this case, the merits that we have, they can get the full amount when we made the vow. Whereas if we didn't make the vow, then they're only getting maybe half. So why not? If we're able to do it, right? If we're able to become vegetarian, then why not take the vow? It only makes more sense. Okay.
The second point, if we bring people to receive Tao, we have to follow the affinities of the person. If we bring them to receive Tao, we have to follow the affinity of them. We don't force them to receive Tao. So that's very important. The teacher always asks to follow the affinity of individuals. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's why I emphasize that we should not be dragging people in if they aren't willing, or the cases of people who they have a motive that they're seeking something, that some personal benefit, something good to happen to them. That's it can be judged on a case-by-case basis. I mean, whether they will become truly sincere. Unfortunately, we cannot guarantee that, because they received the Tao, that their life will be, that they'll be able to get through that, their illness will become better or whatever. Okay, there's no guarantees. We cannot guarantee them. We cannot tell them that. Okay, because again, it's ultimately it is based on their own sincerity and faith. Whether they believe it or not. Okay, so the Tao is very natural. Okay, it flows with the affinity of people. If the people don't have that right affinity, then just like the Buddha says, those who don't have the affinity cannot vary. And so we should not take it upon ourselves to say, oh, no, I know better. I think I can still help this. But by them receiving the Tao, they can do it. Buddha already said if they don't have that affinity, they cannot be saved. They cannot be ferried. And so we should not, think otherwise. Okay, so, okay.